Good afternoon, Two Brain Team Training Facebook group. It's 2 o'clock Eastern, the last day of November of 2021. So as of tomorrow, we have only 1 month left in this year. If you are watching on Facebook, I would absolutely love it if you would join me on Zoom today. It will make this a lot more entertaining, not just for you guys that are watching, but also for me teaching. I love it whenever I can interact with people. It just makes it so much more valuable, not only for you, the person that is participating with me, but also, the people that are potentially only able to watch it on Facebook, or the folks that are not able to be here live, but they are going to come and watch this later. It just makes it much more applicable to coaches that are in the trenches day in and day out. So if you are watching on Facebook, what you need to do is just go to the link that I just posted in the chat, click that button, and then I'll see your name pop up that you're trying to get into Zoom, and I will be sure to let you in. And I'll periodically check my comments. Oh, Eden. Hello, Eden. Yes, this is my new Two Brain hoodie. On the back, it says perfect day. And it's perfect because we're deep in the heart of winter down here in Florida. So a new hoodie at just the right time is what the doctor ordered. So thank you to Two Brain and the team there for that. And what I mean by the dead of winter, for those of you guys that are not fluent in Florida winters, that means it is in the 40s. So that is like the tundra to us, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what the conversion is to Celsius, so maybe somebody can help me out with that. But suffice to say, we're going to have a good time today. I did choose some good pictures for today, so hopefully they can help me paint a really clear picture in terms of the message that I want to get across today. So bear with me for just one moment. I'm going to share my screen because I do have a slide presentation for you today. All right, let's see, share advanced portion. All right, now I just want to double check that I am able to see this. All right, perfect. Looks like it's coming through. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're a couple minutes in. It's just a few minutes after 2 o'clock. So today, the topic at hand is what I learned working with professional athletes that I use with everyday clients. So in thinking about what I wanted to teach on today, I was reflecting back on my coaching career, and it kind of dawned on me that I had a little bit different of a journey compared to, I think, where a lot of the coaches that I interact with on a daily basis that are in the gym setting. My journey has been a little bit different. I was not somebody who started going to a gym and then ended up getting asked to coach because, I love the community and I was a big part of it. And I think that's how a lot of coaches in the Two Brain family kind of get into their position. But for me, it was actually something very different. We had a facility in my hometown that did sports specific training. One of my younger brothers started going there, and I had just about to start college and was talking to the manager there that I was going there for exercise science. And he said, well, maybe you'd be interested to see what we do here, because I really didn't know what I would use that for, but it became very clear as soon as I started hanging around there when it was pure athletes that were in that facility. And in particular, there was a pretty large contingent of professional athletes. So just outside the Tampa area. So we had, people from the Tampa Bay Bucks that would train there, the Lightning. We have an arena football team, the Tampa Bay Storm, that at the time, a bunch of their athletes trained there. So my kind of first foray into working with clients was not, what we call the everyday or the Gen Pop client. It was professional athletes. So very unique. But reflecting back, it occurred to me that it really laid a great foundation for the coach that I became and the coach that I am today. So I wanted to hopefully pass along some lessons to you guys. So a few reasons why I think this is a cool topic to bring to you guys. Number one is these days people are really bombarded by marketing about this whole idea of training like an athlete. You know, if you have even paid casual attention to the marketing that Reebok or in particular Nike has done over the last couple of decades, it is very rooted in if you wear the swoosh, you are an athlete. And that's what all their commercials are, all their language, the design, the branding, everything is geared towards you putting on the swoosh and then becoming something much more akin to the professional athlete that maybe you watch on Saturday or Sunday afternoons. So I think that because of that, I think it's helpful to be able to speak to, you know, what it actually looks like for athletes to train, and I can help you with that perspective. Number two, I think it's important to remember that there is a very, very clear separation in intentions between true athletes and people. And I did a presentation on this a couple of months ago where I talked about the differences between Gen Pop clients and athletes. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that in detail, I would recommend you go back, find that. Maybe I can dig it up and link it. But essentially, the big difference is athletes care about four things. They care about points, prizes, podiums, and paychecks. In anything that doesn't fulfill those things, dictates that they are not an athlete, which is the Gen Pop client, which is 99.9% of all the clients that we service in our gyms today. The other reason why I think this is an important topic to go over is it just provides clarity to the similarities that do exist between athletes and people. So despite what I said in the previous point, that there is a clear separation between the two, believe it or not, there are a lot of similarities to be gained. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. So if you've ever watched or been a part of any of my presentations before, you will know that I always like to give you guys a Cliff's Notes version of this whole presentation. So there's 5 points that I'm going to detail today. The first one is this idea that diva's gonna diva. All right, so that is point number one. Number two is keep the main thing the main thing. Cliff's Note point number three is that novelty / variety are not used. So when we're talking about, you know, what does the training of a professional athlete look like? It is not random. It is not based in variance being the secret sauce. It's not based on novelty because we have to keep them interested. Those are all gimmicks, and I'll get into the nitty gritty in terms of what that means and what it actually looks like. Point number four, the importance of lifestyle outside of training. And then the final point that we're going to close with today is honestly, nobody cares how much you know. All right. So one of the organizations that I was blessed enough to work with many years ago, I guess this has been 15 years now. I would have been wearing some pinstripes if I was doing this presentation way back in the day, because an organization that I worked with in the realm of baseball was the New York Yankees. And so I found it fitting, no joke, when I Googled athlete divas, this is like the first picture that popped up. And so for those of you guys that maybe are not baseball fans, that's Alex Rodriguez. Definitely had a very interesting career just in terms of overall career, but especially when he got to New York, it seemed like drama just tended to follow wherever he went on the ball field. So I thought that was a fitting picture to kind of kick this off. But let's get into what I mean when I say diva's gonna diva. The first thing that people think about or hear when you say athlete and diva, they think about the news story that pops up, you know, on ESPN that some athlete walked out of practice because he was mad, and oh my gosh, they're so entitled. They make hundreds of millions of dollars, and I can't believe that they would do that. And the reality is, yes, that does certainly happen. Pro athletes, however, are no more or less of a headache to coach than the Gen Pop client. And this is really supported by the fact that one of the questions that I field more than anything is, how, as a coach, do I deal with difficult clients? Clients that are always chatting, that don't respect me when I'm at the whiteboard making a presentation, people that don't adhere to the training plan and they just go off and do their own thing. But the reality is, entitlement doesn't discriminate. And so even though that, because the pro athlete makes hundreds of millions of dollars playing on Saturday and Sunday, you see the entitlement play out on the big screen with these guys, but just know that that is also the same behavior that manifests in our gyms day in and day out. So I talk to young coaches in particular a lot about this when maybe they're having some frustration with, Gen Pop clients. They don't understand why people don't take it seriously. Oh, if I only worked with pro athletes or, Division I NCAA athletes, it wouldn't be like this. And I love to just, share stories with them that, yes, as a matter of fact, this does happen at that level. I can remember when I was working with the Yankees back in 2006, going out into one of the fields to get the pitchers to do their conditioning that day. And we had a drill where it was in baseball, there's this drill called running poles. And what that means is you run from like light pole to light pole along the perimeter of the outfield. And a group of them, as I was out there briefing what the workout was going to be, just up and said, no, we're not doing that. You got to come up with something else. And I'm like, no, guys, this is, what we're doing. They're like, nope, not going to do that. And especially at that level, when these guys are making, like I said, millions of dollars every year, they kind of can do what they want. But really, so can the clients in our gym. And so what I took from that dealing in terms of with professional athletes just being difficult to me is it prepared me very well for being difficult, or for dealing with difficult clients in the gym setting. Because what it did is it offered me a very good perspective on life. It became abundantly clear to me that I needed to find not only a way to relate to the people, the athletes that were in front of me, but later on when I did open my gym, it prepared me to be relatable to the mom, the dad, the business owner, the young kid that's just looking for confidence. It allowed me to be very empathetic to their situation. So it really fostered a boatload of that character trait inside of me. So just know a diva is going to diva, whether or not they are a professional athlete or the 45-year-old mother of two, father of three, 15-year-old kid, 70-year-old Legends member at your gym. It doesn't matter. That does not discriminate. And I don't mean to say that just because they have these emotional frustrations sometimes that they will vent, that they are entitled. But sometimes that's a word that can kind of paint the picture of what I'm trying to get you to see in your head. I'm going to pause for just a quick sip of water and make sure that nobody has any questions on Facebook quite yet. Again, if you're watching, I would love you to join me on Zoom. Again, we can go back and forth. You can ask me questions about stories from my past. All right, so let's move on to slide number, well, this is point number 2. The second thing that I learned that I use to this very day is to keep the main thing the main thing. Now, we talked last week or 2 weeks ago at length about the importance of staying focused and getting clarity. But it is abundantly clear when you work with athletes, especially professional athletes, where their pay is determined by the output that they have on the field of play, that they are supremely focused on one thing, and that is their performance on the field. So I know a lot of times in the gym setting, we can get very caught up in PRs and celebrating, the next deadlift PR that somebody got, or the number of double unders that somebody got in a row. And it can be very outcome dependent in terms of clients evaluating their success with your program based upon the progress that they make in the gym. Now, when you have a novice client, this is pretty cool because you could do anything with that person for probably 6 to 12 months, and they are going to make progress. But if you've been coaching long enough, you realize that without a structured plan that progresses somebody, it's very easy to just run into a ceiling time after time after time after somebody has realized kind of the novice game. So the nice part about working with professional athletes is you really learn quickly. I mean, from like day one, that while the performance in the strength and conditioning setting in the gym is of minor importance, it pales in comparison to, okay, that's great that I can deadlift this weight or that I can do this amount of reps on the bench press. But what does it actually do for me come time to play on Saturday, play on Sunday? We had golf, tennis, all these different professional sports, soccer. So they were playing 7 days a week. And that's really what mattered the most to them. So that was a very important learning piece for me, was to keep the main thing the main thing. Now, the reality is, especially when you're dealing with a lot of alpha professional athletes, is distractions certainly crept in from time to time. But distraction for them really manifested in this very competitive atmosphere, right? So he bench pressed 225 for 23 reps. I'm going to go for 24. And that's good because your training environment can really raise, the level of the training that is going on that day. But you learn very quickly that you always bring their why back to the forefront. And I think that that's something that has worked very well for me in my career, because it was always very natural. Even when I got somebody in there that wanted to lose weight, or they just wanted to feel good playing with their kids on the weekend, I always had that in the back of my mind when I was talking to a client when they first walked in, when they're warming up, when they're getting ready for the conditioning, as they're cooling down, as they're walking out the door. I always found a way to make sure that I brought their why to the forefront, because that was most important to them. If you think back to when your clients first joined your gym, or if you did a goal setting session recently with them, you remember they didn't come in there to you to say that I want to deadlift more, I want to snatch more, I want to do muscle ups. Those might be ancillary benefits, but at the end of the day, your job is to deliver on the result that they are paying you to deliver on for them. Now, here's the challenge. Professional athletes, very clear. I want to win more games. I want to stay in the game for a long, prosperous career. Gen Pop clients can be a bit more nebulous in their goal setting. So I want to lose some weight. Okay, well, how much weight? Well, I don't know, 20 pounds. That's always the arbitrary number that gets thrown out there. Well, how quickly do you want to lose it? I don't know, 2 weeks. And they have these expectations, or what they think is reasonable. But I think we can all agree that they haven't taken the time to actually sit down with somebody. And this is where you, the coach, comes in, but to sit down with somebody and work through, what do they really, truly, deeply want more than anything? And so what the takeaway that I had from working with professional athletes is, it forced me to start asking more questions. And then as I progressed in my career, I learned to ask better questions. So go back to Cliff's note number 1, diva's gonna diva. And number 2, keep the main thing the main thing. Before I go on to number 3, I'm just gonna double check this real quick. Eden still thinks my hoodie is sweet. That's amazing. She didn't delete that comment. All right, so let's keep rolling. Point number 3, novelty and variety are not used. Okay, and what I mean by novelty and variety is the flashy exercises, the fancy looking things, using devices that look like they're from 50 years in the future, using new novel training concepts or methodologies. CrossFit can actually be described as one of these. That is not used to work with professional athletes. And even at the highest levels of college, those things are not used. And the interesting thing about this point is that you will see your clients show an interest in trying something new simply because some influencer on Instagram or Facebook has been posting about it. Or maybe they saw their favorite athlete endorsing this thing or this product or something like that. But what you need to know as a coach, and then keep in the forefront of your everyday client, your Gen Pop clients' minds, is the reason that it is in the highlight reel is for marketing clicks. That is it 100%. It is not because that thing, that special water bottle or the special little thing that they put in their water bottle, whether it's the green powder, if it's the pre-workout, if it's the new methodology, if it's this concept that just came out, it's brand new, it's secret, only this guy knows how to do it. None of that stuff is what actually, number one, got them to where they were and will continue to take them where they want to go. And I can speak to this because I've been behind the scenes and I know the way that those things play out. So trust me when I tell you that novelty and variety are not used. So when your clients are asking for something like that, it's really important, if we go back to that previous slide, my last point there is you need to ask more questions and eventually ask better questions to really get to the root and understand, why do they think that they need to do this? Okay. So here is what does work, is good old fashioned strength and conditioning principles that have been around in the industry for, I don't know, let's call it 60, 70 years. So I put a couple acronyms in there. SAID stands for Specific Adaptation to Impose Demand. An easy way to think of this is, if you want to get good at running, you need to run. If you want to get good at football, you need to play football. Now, one can make the argument, well, I can also do some aerobic training on a bike or a ski erg or a rower, and it's going to make my endurance better. Yes, but not specifically running. Okay, so you're going to get good at what you practice. So if you want to get good at just doing random different things every day unsustainably, then that's what your training should look like. But if your clients have a goal to, let's say, get to a specific body composition and maintain it, you need to actually use principles that work to get them there and that they can sustain for the long haul. So that's the SAID principle. MED stands for minimum effective dose. It means doing what needs to be done to get the dose response to get your client closer to where they want to go. If you try to max, that's why it's called minimum effective, not maximum effective dose, because if you push the boundaries of ability every single solitary day, eventually they're going to run into a wall and burn out. And then FITT, fit, is frequency, intensity, type, and time. Frequency just means how often are you training. Intensity, how hard are you pushing, the type of exercise, and then the time duration of the exercise. So if you were to Google, professional football strength and conditioning template, the ones that you will see pop up that look like an Excel spreadsheet grid are the same ones that were in use 20 years ago and 20 years before that. And that's because those principles stand the test of time and they work. And the reality is that the best in the sport are the best because they have fallen in love with boredom. They are bored with their training, so to speak. The reason they stick with it is because it produces reliable results. Okay. And one of the underlying principles that we learn early on in working with professional athletes, believe it or not, and again, this goes against what you see in the marketing hype, is that consistency beats intensity 7 days a week. All right. 7 days a week, consistency beats intensity. And so while you may see clips of athletes running wind sprints or somebody doing a really intense, tough workout, that is probably the 5%. You're not seeing the 95%, or your client's not seeing the 95%. Let me pause for some water and double check on the Facebook feed. So point number 3, novelty and variety are not used. Just good old fashioned SED, MED, and FIT, SED, MED, FIT. All right, so we've covered 3 out of 5. Let's move on to the 4th. So the 4th point is just the importance of lifestyle outside of training. So I want to walk you through these pictures, what's going on here. So this is back in, I think it was maybe 2017. I flew out to San Diego, California, to this place called Exos, EXOS. And this is their San Diego training facility. And they're actually a partner company with my gym right now. We have a sports physical therapy and sports med clinic of theirs inside of my gym in partnership with us. But this was prior to that. I flew out to their San Diego facility, stayed there for a week. It was amazing. And what you're seeing here is once you walk into their facility, the first left-hand turn that you make before you get to the training facility. So this is kind of behind the scenes, but before you get to the training facility, you come to this big giant counter. All right. And this gentleman here, I don't remember who that is precisely, but he is a pro athlete. And these are all individual water bottles that have their name, and it's got a makeup from their specific dietitian and RD of what they should have pre-workout. So if it's vitamins, if it's pre-workout, whatever it is, they've got this little combination of things. They got a little towel. They've got maybe if they need to eat pre-workout. This is all set up for them. So there's like a little alarm that goes off when we know the people should be coming into the building. And then this stuff is prepped as they walk in. They can grab it and go. This is what that counter looks like as we're heading into post-workout. So guys are done training. They have personalized vitamin regimens and then their post-workout shakes ready for them to grab, as they're leaving the facility. And the reason that I like to share this story is it was a great reminder for me at this point. I think I had been coaching already for maybe 15 years. Yeah, 15 years or so, 16 years. Is they have a lifestyle that supports all of the really tough, intense, consistent training that they do. I'll show you a couple more pictures from my trip out there. So this is their outdoor facility. They've got a nice turf field, just beautiful San Diego weather. But right over here behind these bushes are 2 different recovery pools. So they've got a hot tub and a cold plunge tub. But this is all part of it. This is their fridge where they keep all their stuff stored. But it really highlighted the fact that positive adaptation long-term, right? So you got to remember the athlete's mindset is I'm not coming to you for training to just get me ready for next week or the next couple of weeks. They want longevity in their sport. They want to be there and maximize the return on their investment of themselves so that they can live a comfortable life when their career is inevitably over. So they're looking for positive adaptation long-term, but it's only realized if their lifestyle supports it. So these guys, their full-time job, guys and girls, their full-time job is playing their sport. That's how they support themselves and their family. So they have everything set up to support the training that they do so they can play at the highest level. Okay. So their environment is really set up for them to get maximal output from all of their inputs. And why do I think that this is an important thing for me to teach to coaches is this was really kind of a light bulb moment for me in my career to recognize that I needed to modulate the training that I was giving to my Gen Pop clients. I needed to ensure that it wasn't actually producing so much stress that their regular lifestyle could not help them adapt. So that's one of the reasons why we require, part of it's a non-negotiable that nutrition is a core component of our service offering. And one of the reasons why I say that is because I don't believe that there is a individual that has come into my gym yet where them cleaning up their nutrition or focusing on it in some level would benefit them. So if I tell people that I've got the best solution to your problem, it would be disingenuous for me to be like, oh, okay, well, if you don't want nutrition, we don't have to work on that. No, part of the conversation when I'm asking questions is I get them to recognize that I'm not looking for a complete overhaul, but this is something that has to be addressed if you are to get where you ultimately want to go. So the lifestyle piece, and it didn't just become training and nutrition, it was everything else. It was their mindset, it was their sleep, it was managing their stress. So some other food for thought. When you think about long-term positive adaptation from an athletic standpoint, I never saw 30-day or 6-week challenges or any of that stuff until I got into the Gen Pop lifestyle clients, because that is what the market is giving to them, right? Again, go back to what the athlete focuses on is their performance on their field. Their goal is very clear, but the Gen Pop client doesn't have that. So it's up to us as coaches to make sure we ask enough questions to get clarity on that. And then just as a cool aside, something that I learned there is that they spend time recovering at least as much as they spend time training. And let me put that another way. This is a little more clear. If they came on any given day during the week, let's say Monday, and they trained for 3 hours, there was at least 3 hours of specific recovery work that they did, whether that was stretching, if it was body work, if it was cold and hot plunges, whatever it was, they spent at least the amount of time that they did training in recovery. But they really strive for double the amount of time. So train for 3, recover for up to 6 hours. Okay. Now, is that a reasonable expectation for Gen Pop clients? Absolutely not. And that's not what my takeaway was and what I want yours to be. But the point of this is to recognize that if the professional athlete is training for 3 hours, recovering for at least 3, or training for an hour, recovering for at least 1, so they can come back and do it again, we have to make sure that the training that our clients do on a daily basis can be supported by the lifestyle that they live outside of the gym. Okay. So it might not mean daily beatdowns. It might not mean 60-minute sessions. Now, that might not be something that you can do right now, but it is food for thought for how you can set your client up for success long-term, because I've been around long enough to know that ultimately that's what all of our clients want. All right, before we go on to the last one, I want to make sure that nobody has anything to say. Okay. So just a quick recap where we've been so far. We covered points 1 through 4. Number 1, diva's gonna diva. Number 2, keep the main thing the main thing. Number 3, novelty and variety are not used. Number 4, the importance of lifestyle outside of training. And then coming to the 5th and final point today, nobody cares how much you know. So I want to tell you the reason that I chose this specific picture of if there's any young coaches out there that don't know what you're looking at, this is fitness of the 90s right here. This is step aerobics. So you had these little, I'm talking like miniature boxes, 6 inches off the ground. They're these light, easily portable plastic, pretty tough plastic pieces, but you'd get together in a group and there'd be some fun music on, probably music from the late 80s, very techno in nature. Be some really enthusiastic instructor up front like Richard Simmons, and you would just kind of watch what he was doing or she was doing and do it right along with them, alongside all of your buddies in class. So when I was with the Yankees in 2006, Hideki Matsui, he's the New York Yankees outfielder that I shared the picture of in the Facebook group today. He came down for some rehab from the big league club. And I was tasked with actually taking him through, his workout. And let's see, at that point, I had only been coaching for a couple of years and certainly had never really gotten a big league guy. And I think Matsui was making $150 million or something like that, is the middle of this big contract. So I had never gotten somebody to work with one-on-one that had that much financially on the line. The interesting thing is he never really cared what I knew. And he never said that, but let me tell you the story of how I came to realize he didn't care how much I knew as a coach. Is because one of the drills that I had him do just for warm up was basically a step aerobics drill like they are doing in this photo. And he loved it, absolutely loved it. Now, was that the actual thing that we were going to use to get him where he wanted to go? No. But funny enough, he came back for day 2 and he didn't speak English. So we had a translator between us, but his translator said, hey, he really loved what you did with him yesterday on this little plastic box. And he wants to make sure that we do that again. He really trusts what you're doing. So I didn't know a whole lot as a coach there, but what I did learn is that although nobody cares how much you know, they don't really care that until they know how much you care. So one of the things that I learned very, very quickly is I cared for every single person that came in front of me. And what that interaction with Matsui that year taught me, or kind of allowed me to do, was be confident in what I know. And at Two Brain Coaching, we have the saying that you should have confidence in your competence. And you should have it every moment of your career, because the coach that I am today knows far more than the coach I was back in 2006. And I knew far more than when I first started coaching back in 2001, formally. But in each of those instances, I was confident in the little bit that I did know because of 2 reasons. Number one, I genuinely cared about the success of others, and I had a lot of great people that surrounded me and helped me in my career. But the other thing that I realized was there is a whole heck of a lot that I do not know, and I still recognize that to this day. In fact, at the Two Brain Summit a couple of years ago, I shared a story about like the prolific amount of reading that I do. And I figured over the course of, my life, I've probably read enough books to fill up a really small library. But I happened to Google how many libraries are in the United States and found out at the time there's like 187,000 some odd libraries. So while I know a good amount, I'm also very aware that there is a whole lot that I don't know. And so what that's allowed for me to do over the course of my career is it's created space for me to be honest about what I know and what I don't know. So I've never been shy if somebody says, hey, I've got this shoulder thing, or I've got this hip thing. I will ask them a couple of questions, but as soon as I feel like, you know what, this is ultimately out of my niche, my specialty, it's out of my wheelhouse, I will quickly refer them to a specialist in what I think that they are potentially dealing with, whether it's an ortho, if it's a PT, a chiro, anybody that knows more about that specific thing than I do. And I know a lot of coaches struggle with that because you don't want to be seen as incompetent, or you don't want to send your client away to somebody. I remember being fearful of this. If I sent them to a physical therapist, that they are going to say, you don't need to be working out at that gym or doing CrossFit, and I would never get that client back. But what I realized is that the more transparent and open and honest that I was with people about, hey, you know what, that's really not my specialty, I stay in my lane, they were the ones that ultimately came back because they knew that I genuinely cared about their health, their safety, their success. So much so that I was willing to send them away from my care in the hopes that ultimately they would come back to me. So that was the 5 lessons that I learned working with professional athletes that I still use to this day. Just as a quick Cliff's Notes version recap, Diva's Gonna Diva. Biggest takeaway for me in applying it to everyday client is that it doesn't discriminate whether they're professional athletes, Gen Pop clients. They're all working through their own emotions. Remember, athletes are humans too. So make sure that you take the time to recognize that. Number 2, you should always keep the main thing the main thing. So athletes, very straightforward. They want to ensure that performance on the field is the indicator that they are doing things correctly. They're making progress. It's up to you as a coach to take that same lesson to your Gen Pop clients. Ask good questions to get to the root of why they're coming to you to solve some problem, get clarity on it, and then make sure that you keep that front and center every single interaction that you have with them. Number 3, recognize that you don't need shiny, fancy objects like novelty and variety. Stick with the basics. That's ultimately what allows you to create long-term positive adaptation instead of a short-term quick fix. Number 4, the importance of lifestyle that supports the training that somebody is doing, that somebody is dedicated to, is super, super overlooked in the Gen Pop, micro gym space. It's very easy to give somebody a workout that is just going to leave them beat up, feeling like they got a quote unquote good workout. But you need to be very clear with your client that their lifestyle is what dictates how they will respond to the training that you give them. And if it's not set up to respond to the training that they're currently getting, you need to have a conversation and adjust it accordingly. And then last and certainly not least, probably the most important one, and we say this like at the very beginning of all of our courses on the Two Brain Coaching platform: nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So wherever you are in your career as a coach, you're brand new, you're just taking on your first couple of clients, you've been doing it for a decade or more, it doesn't really matter how much you know. And I would wager to you that you know enough to get your ideal client results for the rest of a very prolific career for yourself. Just show the proper amount of care for your client's success, and all the success that you want ultimately will follow. That's all I had today. I'm going to double check, make sure nobody has anything to say on Facebook. And then if you guys have any specific questions, or you're wondering how you can apply this to your specific gym scenario, working with clients, I'd be more than happy to just chat with you on the phone, go back and forth over email. You can reach me, josh@twobraincoaching.com. And that does it for us today. If you have anything else you'd like to send me, I'd love it. Otherwise, I will see you back here same time next Tuesday. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.